Good afternoon, financial professionals. My name is Brennan Derone, Managing Partner and Chief Distribution Officer here at E4 Insurance Services. Welcoming you to the Brew, building relationships every week. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you that are new to the Brew, we like to start our Brewcast by celebrating today's national days. Today is National Public Sleeping Day, National Tooth Fairy Day, and National Chocolate Souffle Day. I like to see how I can combine these, and I envision it as, you might have a chocolate souffle after lunch. I hear they're quite difficult to make, but have that, then take a nap, probably because you've had a bunch of sugar. Not only did you lose a tooth, but you're sleepy. So take your nap, put that tooth underneath your pillow for National Tooth Fairy Day, and it all comes together. So I was talking to Mason before this. He was saying that his daughter has a loose tooth, and tried to tell him that if she loses it on National Tooth Fairy Day, it's a 10x multiplier. So her lucky day, potentially. On today's Brew, we do have Mason McKinnie, Sales Vice President of Business Solutions, Principal Life Insurance. Today, we'll be wrapping up February's focused planning series on buy-sell agreements with a discussion on why it is important to make sure business owners have buy-sell agreements that are current, funded, and funded at the right business value. We encourage you to use your chat box, raise a hand to ask a question. Also, all attendees are in a drawing for a CE voucher and Starbucks gift card. We'll be announcing the winner at the end. So thank you for tuning in. Mason, thank you for joining us today. I'll hand the reins over to you.
And I appreciate that, Brendan. I think we're going to try to keep that tooth in my daughter's mouth. I'm not sure I can afford that 10 times multiple. Anyways, pleasure being with you all today. Thank you for the time. As Brendan mentioned, we're going to talk about buy-sell agreements, why it's important to have them, what they are, why they should be current, why they should be funded, and funded at the right value. Have a few, hopefully horror stories at the end to maybe light some fires. We see a lot of these every year to the tune of thousands of opportunities, buy-sell reviews, and business valuations. So we've seen it all. I'm going to dance around a little bit on the slides if you're watching, but especially in that business planning, exit planning, succession planning, whatever you want to call it, world, where the fundamental foundational planning is vitally important. A quote by Mike Tyson is extremely timely and I think very applicable to our conversation today. And it's everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And way too much or way too often we see business owners who have an agreed upon plan, who have the Scotch or Merlot method for valuing a business, who have a handshake agreement that you're going to help out my spouse should I have a heart attack and die. But many times that, I guess, runs afoul when something does happen and there is no contractual obligation in place to provide that kind of efficient transfer of that business interest. So we want to make sure that we are helping all of your business owner clients get off the mat or get up off the mat should they get punched in the face and be able to keep on fighting. So we're going to talk about buy-sell agreements today. We're going to talk about why they're important and why it's important to have a current one, a funded one, and funded one on the right value. I always like to start it out with talking about what a buy-sell agreement is. And a formal definition is a buy-sell agreement is an agreement by and among shareholders of a business and perhaps the business itself. It establishes a mechanism for the purchase of equity interest following the death of one of the owners. What does that all mean? It is a contractual agreement between business owners to say who's going to buy your business, when they're going to buy it, what triggering event circumstances, and for how much. That's it. Okay, who's going to buy it, when they're going to buy it, and how much. And if you don't have those contractually noted, documented, and agreed upon, you may not be getting off the mat if you get punched in the jaw. So that is our goal today, to talk about what are some of those things we can do to help in terms of determining who, when, and how much. So the first thing that you need to do, one, is establish a buy-sell agreement. But The takeaway from this is to engage with your business owner clients who have existing buy-sell agreements and discuss with them the importance of proper reviewing of those documents, make sure they're structured properly, which we'll get into, make sure that they are valued, the businesses are valued properly so that we can properly fund these buy-sell agreements to provide liquidity in the event that you actually need to buy back those shares in one of those triggering events, which we'll get into as well. There's a lot of different types of buy-sell agreements, a lot of different types of arrangements. So at Principal, we have attorneys and CPAs that provide our buy-sell reviews that look at thousands of buy-sell agreements a year, and we see all different shapes and sizes. There's cross-purchase agreements, entity purchase agreements, wait-and-see agreements, no-sell agreements, business continuation, general partnerships, all these different kinds of flavors of buy-sells that could be applicable to your business owner. And what we see oftentimes is that what may start out as an entity purchase agreement, after doing the buy-sell review, we identify that there's now 4 owners instead of 2, that maybe, or a cross purchase as it started, now there's 4 owners instead of 2, where an entity purchase might be more appropriate from an efficiency and a transactionability standpoint. And so we'll go through and provide you with the type of executive summary of what we're looking at, as well as what may be most appropriate, because it may not stand the test of time relative to when it was originally drafted. Buy-sell agreements have a lot of different components. There are different triggering events, and that's things like death, disability, retirement, divorce, bankruptcy, insolvency, loss of employment via termination or just retirement, I think, as I mentioned as well. All of these things need to be noted in that buy-sell agreement. We're going to talk about a few real-life horror stories that did not have some of these things. A really quick and easy one is Frank McCourt with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Very complex buy-sell, very complex business transaction, but long story short, he got divorced. It was not properly documented in any exit or succession planning, and he essentially lost the team because of that. Really easy to avoid that problem before it becomes a problem if you do it right. So we're going to talk about those different triggering events as well, and kind of what we can do to mitigate some of the risks involved of one of those being executed. We're also going to talk about funding that buy-sell agreement. So when there is a triggering event, whether it's voluntary with a retirement or involuntary with a death or disability, you're going to need money. You're going to need it available and accessible, and you're going to need it now. Right? And there's 3 different ways you can do that. One is cash flow. And if you lose an owner who is material to the growth and the ongoing revenue generation of that business, it will be difficult to pull out cash flow to buy out the shares of a deceased owner if you're obligated to via your buy-sell agreement. The other option is debt. The last thing you're going to want to do when a key decision maker, a key revenue generator, a founder, a partner, an owner dies is take on additional debt when you need to make sure that the blood comes back to the core and you're protecting the assets that you have and not leveraging anything in the event of keeping that business going. So what's the third alternative? That's insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, putting money away now that can be used later to create liquidity to buy out the shares of a dead or disabled or departed business owner. And that's our goal, is to make sure that the agreement is in place to identify the right time, the right amount, and the right people involved, and then provide the capital and liquidity to be able to execute that transaction so it becomes efficient and unemotional. So we do a couple different things to do that. One is a complementary business valuation and a complementary buy-sell review. What I first want to talk about is, I didn't have it in here, is the buy-sell review. In my opinion, this is the easiest, most straightforward, and most passive way to generate business planning conversations and opportunities in the industry. Every business owner out there should have a buy-sell agreement. If not, the entire organization, enterprise, business, employees' livelihoods, and their families are at risk. Business owner goes down and they don't have that agreement in place, we're looking at possibly dissolution of that business. So we need to make sure that that buy-sell agreement is there, first and foremost, and that it's doing exactly what they say they want it to do. So first horror story or potential horror story, we actually avoided it, where a family-run business with a patriarch who was in his early 60s. He started the business. He brought on other family members. They took ownership. We provided a complimentary business valuation. Business is worth $13 million. Okay, a $13 million business, 62-year-old patriarch has 60% of the business, around $8 million in equity. The four other shareholders had various amounts of minority ownership. The plan was to do some business planning around that dollar amount. Well, the next question out of our advisor's mouth was, do you have a buy-sell agreement? Yeah, we do. We drafted it 2 years ago. Great. Do you want to make sure that it says everything you want to say? We can take a look at it for free after we did this valuation. You know what? Might as well. Long story short, we talked about those triggering events earlier. The death triggering event, which is in every single buy-sell agreement, has either an optional or a mandatory obligation to buy back the shares of that business, is how they're generally structured. In this particular instance, we had these 5 business owners, 4 of which were minority shareholders with not a lot of capital and liquidity, and 1 big owner, right? The buy-sell agreement stated that should there be a death of a business owner, the business or the board has an optional obligation to buy the shares of a deceased owner. If they do not exercise that option, the other owners then have a mandatory obligation to buy back the shares of that deceased owner. We communicated what that document said to the advisor, had a conversation with the owners, and they were shocked because that's not what they thought it said. 2 words changed the complete nature of that buy-sell agreement. So if the big guy were to die, that business is going to look at their books and say, we don't have $8 million in cash and we can't take on debt. We're not going to exercise that option. Now you have 4 other business owners who have a mandatory obligation to come up with $8 million to buy out their dad, their uncle, the owner of that company.
Now, Mason, did they change the buy-sell, or did they just get appropriate insurance to fund the what if?
Both. So the first thing they did, and this is what we often see, we don't execute buy-sell agreements. We don't draft them. We provide consultative language and best practice as to what their document says and what it should say. They immediately went back to their attorney, said, hey, we want to make sure that the business has the mandatory obligation because we don't want that risk on our owners and employees. So they changed those 2 words, where now the business has a mandatory obligation to buy the business, restructured it as an entity purchase buy-sell agreement, and then funded it for the value of the business that we determined, which was the tune of $13 million. Went through the underwriting process, some dings and dents. The big guy with $8 million of life insurance coverage on a term insurance chassis. I think we did a 10-year term for him, 15, 20 years for the other owners. Total premium was $130,000 to fund mostly his policy, but the other policy as well. And they were happy to write the check because we found a problem that they didn't know existed. He gets punched in the face. They go down to the mat. They're not getting up. We were able to help them through the buy-sell review process, not only to quantify the value of that business, but also to identify some key things that were not what they thought they were. And then at that point in time, addressed them, fixed them, and they're happy to cut the check to protect themselves for that future pain. So one more quick one, and then we'll shut it down for questions. 2 business owners, friends growing up, went to college together, roommates, families vacationed together. They had a $4 million business. They actually created a buy-sell agreement. It was a cross-purchase. They own the policies on each other's lives. Okay. One dies, the other one uses life insurance proceeds to buy the shares at a step-up basis, and they take over, and the spouse or the estate is made whole. $2 million life insurance policy was purchased on each. They thought they were good. The spouses were actually a party to the agreement. One of the business owners dies of a heart attack. Spouse goes to the other owner, said, hey, I would like to be out of the business. I know that you have $2 million in life insurance. How do we do this transaction? He goes back and looks at the buy-sell agreement. They never executed it. They didn't sign it. They drafted it. They wrote it all down. They bought life insurance. He's the owner and the beneficiary of his dead partner's life insurance policy, and he has no legal obligation to give her the money. He said, you know what? I'm going to keep the $2 million. Welcome to the business. You're my new partner. She did not want that to happen. It went legal. There were months and years of fighting back and forth. They didn't go on vacations anymore. Families were broken apart. Sad situation. End of the day, courts came back and said, ma'am, we're really sorry. We do not have a legal obligation to make him buy these shares from you. You are his partner. Long story short, he was able to find a way to dissolve the business, open up shop essentially next door and cut her out of everything. She was left with nothing, and her husband's passed away, and she had nothing for the ownership of those shares. So even best friends, family members who have best intentions at the time get greedy at the worst possible times and can ruin situations. So that's why it's important to do things like sign it, to execute it, to have the right parties involved, and to make sure it's current, updated, and funded properly based off of current market valuation. So that's putting us at 12:15. Yep. Someone talk?
It was me, Mason. I said those are definitely some good examples. Not that most of us own the Dodgers, but motivation to make sure that, you know, we work with our business owners and make sure that they have the right documents in place for your 3Ds.
Yep, and I would say you don't have to own the Dodgers, but if you own a business, the same risks apply no matter how many zeros are behind the value. And likely it is your livelihood, it's your largest asset, it's your most important asset. And if you're not doing the basic, easy things to protect that in the event that something goes wrong, worst case scenario is absolutely a worst case scenario. So have the conversation. Do you have a buy-sell agreement? When's the last time you reviewed it? We now have the resources behind us at E4 and Principal to provide a complimentary peer-reviewed buy-sell agreement review so that we will take a look at it. We'll give you best practice consultative feedback, and we will help you also provide evaluation to make sure that it's funded based off a current market value, not something you came up with in your head talking to your business partner, or book value, which is a death sentence if you're trying to create liquidity. So really appreciate the time. Any questions, please reach out to your partners at E4. They'll give me a call and we can hop on the phone and hopefully create some opportunities.
Thank you, Mason. And if anybody has a question, well, actually, I do see one pop up in my chat right now. How do you look at the value of minority interest? Do you apply discounting to that? We
do not. Now, we're not saying that it does not exist, but the way that we do a business valuation is looking at, the financial approach or the income approach, where we look at 3 years of business financials or business tax returns, and we base the valuation on those 3 years. We'll look at trending, we'll weight it based off of more current years, but it is purely based off the financials. We will then have a conversation with the agent advisor, E4 representative, and talk about why we valued it the way we did. They can then provide feedback. They can have the owner on the call as well to say, hey, we didn't include the boats, the houses, the golf memberships, whatever. There could be excess owner salary, or there could be, discounting as it relates to minority shareholder interest, those types of things. So we can adjust the value based off of that conversation, but the initial valuation will be purely based off of the financial information that we receive via the balance sheet, profit and loss, or business tax returns.
Thank you. If anybody else has any other questions, feel free to either unmute yourself or send a chat. While we wait for that, Mason, would you like to pick a number between 1 and 31?
7.
All right. Our winner is Austin Rund. Congratulations, Austin. You will be receiving a Starbucks gift card and a CE voucher, so congratulations. Today's recording will be posted on our Brew blog and emailed out if you'd like to watch that again. On next week's Brew, we will be kicking off March Focused Planning Series theme on key person insurance. Doug Bowden from Symetra will share ways for your business owner clients to create opportunities in the reward and retain their key employees. Thank you, everyone, for joining the brew, and we will see you next week.